Greetings and salutations. Hope this finds you well. Quick shout out to the two Uber comrades on Patreon supporting my channel and this content. Independent Left News, definitely check them out. They're a great resource. And my partner, thank you, Rosa. Guys, stay hydrated. So, then I was thinking about after getting through a chapter of this very, very important and worthwhile read. As you can see, Border and Rural Global Migration, Capitalism, and the Rise of Racist Nationalism by Harsha Walia. Just look who did the foreword and afterward. You know this is going to be just fucking a treasure trove, and it is. Again, only a chapter through, but something it made me think about was how, people on the left, progressive, socialist, communist, etc., we tend to only highlight like abolishing ICE, but where is that same rhetoric and heat for abolishing the Border Patrol? The Border Patrol is just as racist, just as white supremacist. It upholds capitalism and, imperialism and white supremacy, settler colonialism as well. But we tend to only have this kind of narrow, myopic focus on abolishing ICE. Obviously, ICE should be abolished for sure, in complete and utter agreement of that. They're like the fucking, United States version. They're horrible. Obviously, totally fucked up. Get rid of them, but we also need to get rid of the Border Patrol as well. And Harsha Walia in the first chapter here goes into a little bit of the backstory, the formation of the Border Patrol, as well as the Texas Rangers, which made me think of the baseball team, which why aren't we wanting to change the name of the Texas Rangers when we look at the history of the Texas Rangers? And then it gets into the Border Patrol. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. This is on page 32. White power has shaped state formation and border controls, particularly in Texas and California. In Texas, the paramilitary militia Texas Rangers was initiated through violent attacks on the mighty indigenous Comanches and mass executions to clear the frontier for Anglo-American settlements. Kelly Little Hernandez writes that the Texas Rangers, quote, battled indigenous groups for dominance in the region, chased down runaway slaves who struck for freedom deep within Mexico, and settled scores with anyone who challenged the Anglo-American project in Texas. After the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and the advent of the railroad brought in more settlers to both sides of the Rio Grande, land mass was appropriated from Tejanics, Mexicans in Texas. State officials, the Army's Texas Rangers, enforced these land grabs with brute force. Within a decade, and in just two counties, 187,000 acres of land were appropriated from Tejanics for Anglo settler ranchers. So again, that's just a little bit of the disgusting, despicable history of the Texas Rangers, and yet there is a baseball team in Texas called the Texas Rangers, and Texas Rangers still exist in Texas too, I believe. Let's see. And this gets into the history of the Border Patrol a little bit. Formed in 1924, the U.S. Border Patrol's first generation of agents was recruited from the ranks of the Texas Rangers and Klansmen. So again, Border Patrol formed in 1924. The first people recruited into that was the Texas Rangers, who again were hunting down slaves, runaway slaves in Mexico, bringing them back. They were attacking these indigenous groups, the Comanches in particular, and anybody that was, fighting back against this, settler colony that was, stolen from indigenous people, right? And the Klansmen, obviously another really fucked up white supremacist, group, laying the ground for culture of racism, militarism, and violence still prevalent in the agency. Yes, 100%. That's why we need to abolish ICE and Border Patrol, because they both serve the same purpose: to uphold white supremacy, to uphold this settler colonial nation state to uphold militarism and imperialism, capitalism as well, right? Today's migrant killings by border agents in the borderlands and tens of thousands of apprehensions at the Texas-Mexico border, this page 33, are a continuity of the Anglo-settler violence permeating the heart of Texas. We also see it in the use of violent terminology like tonks, referring to border crossers. The word is derived from the sound border agents' flashlights supposedly make when hitting migrants over the head. Organized vigilantes capturing Black people, paramilitaries hunting Indigenous people, and militias apprehending migrants laid the foundation for our irredeemable modern-day police and border forces. So again, that's just a little passage from this book, but it's, I mean, oh, here we go. State is page 31. State formation through white supremacy, border formation through the distinct but interrelated process of expansion, elimination, and enslavement imposed the white polity and racial exclusion and migrant expulsion further solidify the white racial caste. While Anglo-European settlers were welcome, actually encouraged as part of the settler colonial project to eliminate the indigenous jurisdiction, immigrants racialized as non-white faced marginalization. Obviously, that's still very much happening, today in current United States, right? So just really, really awesome book. Highly recommend it. And just wanted to point out, we need to have that same fire, that same energy for getting rid of the border patrol as we, rightly do for getting rid of, ICE, right? Here we go. Really like this part too. This is page 25. The normalization of settler colonialism evades the settler occupation as a method of imperialism and instead tries to produce indigenous people as domesticated citizens of the U.S. Theories of domestication and claims to indigenous lands explain, I believe this is Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, obliterates the present and presence of indigenous nations struggling for their liberation from states of colonialism. The characterization of indigenous people as a domesticated U.S. racial and ethnic minority group, not only omits the inherently anti-imperialist nature of indigenous struggles, but also homogenizes a multiplicity of indigenous nations. Anyway, the doorbell rang. I should probably go see what that's about, I suppose. But anyways, highly recommend this book. I think when I get through it a little further, I'll probably do a live stream and hit on some more of these highlights. It's just so good. So good. Please do yourself a favor and read this if you're still, in a liberal mindset of, defending the U.S. settler colonial state. This might make you rethink that for a number of reasons. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more content. All part of the people. Abolish ICE, abolish borders, abolish the border patrol. Peace. Much love. Land back as well, obviously.